Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Empire, going to be taking Boris's grudge match against the Beastmen, of course. Unfortunately not Kazrak, Morgur, the ever-boring Shadow Gave here to lead the way, of course, for the Beastmen. Who else would we see? But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the builds. Boris, of course, up on the Griffin. In terms of his loadout here, he's got Hold the Line for extra melee defense, White Cloak of Ulrich, as well as Crush the Weak, because, you know, he causes fear and terror and all that. Since the Beastmen generally have low leadership, you're probably going to get pretty good value from that Crush the Weak. Cloak of Ulrich, of course, is just a constant debuff, and the Midland Rune Fangs for self-healing. We've got 3 units of Pistoliers. That's right, folks, this is no meme territory right here. Long-time viewers of the channel will know I'm a big fan of Pistoliers, especially in the current patch. I haven't been in the past. Total War Warhammer 1, they were pretty terrible. Currently, their missile damage is actually pretty solid. 2 AP per shot with 2 shots per volley, giving them a total of, 4 AP damage per volley, which is actually not too bad. And again, against non-AP armored targets especially, they will do very, very well. So, of course, Beastmen have plenty of those, hence I like him in this matchup quite a bit. In terms of the rest of the army, we've got Zintler's Reichsguard up here, a couple more Reichsguard over on this side, the Demi-Faith Squad, or the Faith Demi-Squad rather, with the Archlector and the Warrior Priest, Royal Altar of Griffites here. Of course, he's going to be providing that Grand Hammer of Sigmar, the Hammer of Sigmar, and he's also got Banner of Eternal Flame in this particular matchup, just in case we get a hold of Morgur or the Bushes of Kalkengard, 2 specific high-value targets, both weak to fire damage. So I do like that Banner of Eternal Flame quite a bit in this matchup. For the rest of the army, just to round things out, we've got some State Troop Spearmen, some with shields, some without, and that's pretty much it for our Beastmen opponents here. We've got 2 Centaurs with Grey Opens with some Poison Hounds here, and a similar group over on the far side. Main line's going to be Ungor Spearman Herd with some Bestigor in the center, and Morgur the Shadow Gave. No caster for the Beastmen, interestingly enough, but still going to be a formidable Beastmen army. You can see Balance of Power still borked for the Beastmen, as it does start out significantly in their favor, but nonetheless, we should be able to weather the storm here. You can see there's going to be quite a bit of an extended positioning phase as I kind of screen out my opponent's flanking force with these Pistoliers here. And as these guys sort of pull around the side here and screen out, I want to talk a little bit more about them. And I know I said these guys weren't a meme, and that's true. These guys actually are pretty solid in this matchup, as well as a few others. You can see taking some pot shots, already bringing down a couple of unit models, or I thought those mushrooms were Centaurs, just the 1 unit model. Those are probably orcs in the making, but anyway. Pistoliers getting some effective screening fire here, and in matchups where you're going to face a lot of high-value, low-armor targets, so like the Beastmen, Dark Elves, for example, where you're not necessarily going to face a lot of long-range counter-skirmish. Both the Beastmen and the Dark Elves don't necessarily have the longest range counter-skirmish. Well, I guess, you know, both of them have artillery pieces, but nonetheless, you can still get some good damage shown on some high-value targets, and generally stay out in front of most of their mobile units and in front of their skirmishers as well, which is why I like Pistoliers quite a bit in both of those matchups. But you can see a pitched engagement going on in the front line as these Zintler's Reichsguard charge in. They were actually hidden in some kind of scrub right there, and they charge in with Boris providing a quick terror bomb, just routing off a whole bunch of these Centaurs, and you can see one of the units of Centaurs just about down already. The Reichsguard just going ahead, charging straight through and into the Ungors and Bestigor here. Again, going very aggressively after my opponent's mobile forces, because if we can win a decisive mobility advantage, we can just cycle charge my opponent to death with Reichsguard, and that's more or less my plan here. You can see the Royal Altar of Griffites. We're also, again, hidden in this kind of scrub brush here, which does provide the ability to hide, and we managed to draw those Centaurs in with the Pistoliers and counter ambush. Granted, the Royal Altar of Griffites did take quite a bit of damage. Fortunately, wasn't quite on point with my regrowth as it was on cooldown after having used it on the Zintler's Reichsguard earlier, but you can see my opponent has summoned up one of the groups of Chaos Spawn here. I'm not sure, I think it might have popped off. Looks like we still have all the Reichsguard online, so I'm not sure exactly what it popped off on, but we're going to bring the State Troop Spearmen forward to screen out while we pull out the cavalry and try and take the high ground here, as the Empire loves to do. Pistoliers are just kind of firing into this mess, and some of the Reichsguard have taken quite a bit of damage here, which is unfortunate. But in the back line, the Warrior Priest and the Royal Altar Priest have managed to chase off a lot of my opponent's mobile forces here. Meanwhile, the state troops trying to retreat as well. You can see we're trying to pull back a little bit, but the retreat's sort of turning a bit disorganized as these state troop spearmen barely able to hold the line here and delay the assault for just a minute. The Reichsguard go ahead and countercharge to try and finish off this one unit of Centaurs with great weapons that's caught up in this pocket here. Boris comes in to drop a quick terror bomb as well, but it's not quite enough, unfortunately, to finish off these Centaurs with great weapons. You can see they are holding their leadership together relatively well, and the Reichsguard are taking some damage, so we're going to drop an Earthblood on them and go ahead and pull them back briefly. You can see the Royal Altar Cryptites, having mostly dispatched targets in the back, going to go ahead and pull up on station as well. And Boris going to pull back up into the air. Couldn't quite finish off those Centaurs with great weapons, so we do go ahead and pull back one more time and just try and get to a safe position here where we can get some support. Pistoliers firing in very nicely from the flank, so let's zoom in as these guys fire in and retreat here. Just start to reposition. And again, because of my decisive mobility advantage, I was able to win. We can more or less dictate the pace of the engagement at this point. You can see there are a few groups of scattered Centaurs still with their leadership still together, but for the most part, I'm going to be able to just kind of cycle charge with Boris a little bit, and the various units of cavalry drop into different pockets and more or less just impose my will on the Beastmen. You can see the Spearmen holding the line valiantly here as Boris brings home the hammer. And yeah, so far we're just kind of letting the Beastmen chew on the state troops for a minute while we let these Pistoliers do some good work. Even firing in on these Ungor Spearmen herd, which are a relatively cheap unit. I'm perfectly happy to let them eat the Pistolier shots though, as they are of course anti-large and will be okay against the cavalry. They won't be amazing against the cavalry here because of the heavy armor, but they'll be able to do a bit. You can see another reason I'm waiting here is the second unit of Chaos Spawn we managed to bait up. This is the one I believe that gets summoned when a unit is low on health, and we managed to pop it off on just a cheap state troop spearman. So the Reichsguard, now all three relatively low, are going to be protected. Same thing with the Altdorf here, so we won't lose one of them to the Chaos Spawn summons. And another reason to wait here is that the Chaos Spawn do degrade over time, so if I just kind of sit back, use my ammo to try and whittle away at these Ungor Spearmen herd as much as possible, you know, it's going to be in my benefit, not only because we're doing damage to the Spearmen, of course, but because the Chaos Spawn are degrading. You can see their health slowly dropping naturally over time. And yeah, they are ugly enough, certainly, to degrade over time, but ugh, nasty. But yeah, a few scattered groups of state troop spearmen still kind of getting eaten up by the Beastmen formation here, but nonetheless, we are able to get some effective fire, and even against the Beskor, despite their 95 armor, will still take a bit of damage from the Pistolier fire, certainly. You can see the Centaurs getting routed off there, so at this point we definitely have a decisive mobility advantage. We're going to fast forward a little bit through this mid-game, as it's more or less just me shooting with Pistoliers and waiting for those Chaos Spawn to degrade before we go ahead and charge in. So yeah, at this point we've used up most of the ammo, and we're going to go ahead and get things rolling. You can see just a bit more positioning and a few volleys left to fire, so we'll soak up some sweet cinematics of these Pistoliers just dual wielding, firing both barrels, you know, both at the same time. Oh man, super epic. And yeah, my Beastman opponent, deciding he's kind of sick of getting shot at, is going to go ahead and move down off the hill, and this is actually going to be beneficial for me because we can charge downhill. So these Pistoliers point blank fire. Actually, I'm not sure they hit even the broadside of a barn there, but as my opponent charges back uphill, no, I thought we were going to charge. Guess we're just biding our time a little bit more here, but unfortunately the Pistoliers do get caught up by the Centaurs a little bit in this backline area. But we'll fast forward just slightly more as the Reichsguard do come in over on this flank. Unfortunately, we do charge in a brace Ungor Spearman herd. I was hoping we would hit them a little bit more from the flank there, but as we pull away, my opponent commits a few units. That does mean that Boris, I thought he was going to drop down somewhere, but yeah, just lots of positioning at this point because I want to make sure we get this engagement in the appropriate way. And you can see now the engagement getting underway proper. We've got a regrowth going to be going down on the Royal Altar of Gryphites here, so they get that physical resistance, they get that healing. They've also got the Hammer of Sigmar to get their melee defense up. Yep, there it goes. Even the Pistoliers getting involved with 44 melee attack and flaming attacks from the Warrior Priest there. So yeah, at this point the Alpha Strike comes down from the Empire. Kind of the late game Alpha Strike, which I know is a bit of an oxymoron if you actually play 40k, but nonetheless, it's late game kind of surround rush, and the Terror is going to be a bit much for the Beastmen. You can see the Bestigor especially, very high value units with quite a few unit models left, a lot of hit points, routed off here with, yeah, almost 70 unit models still. That's really rough. And that was kind of my intention of getting this full surround here, so we're able to break quite a few of these different units. Morker looks like dropping some leadership buffs, try to hold things together, but this is going to be Value Train right here, chasing down Bestigor with Pistoliers. And you want to talk about some meme units? Well, this is as memey as it gets, guys. Oh man, it's awesome. And yeah, at this point you can see the bounce power has tipped finally in our favor, and once Morker gives up the fight, the rest of the Beastmen will go ahead and chain route, so we'll soak up some cinematics of him getting eaten up by Boris here. Or, you know, Boris can go after the Bestigors, that's fine too. The Royal Altar of Gryphites, everyone in this pocket has flaming attacks from the Warrior Priest, so they're all doing extra damage. Morger gives up the fight, and that's it for the Beastmen. So, well played my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Yeah, definitely a fun battle and fun build. Definitely. The Pistoliers, in particular, are a unit that I'm a huge fan of, and I already talked a lot about why, so I don't need to go into too much more detail, but man, 88 kills on Pistoliers, not bad at all. Just huge value train from these guys, and keep in mind, quite a few of those are coming against like these Centaurs with great weapons as well, so some really nice value. 166 on the Royal Altar Gryphites as well. They fended off a lot of these Centaurs, just came in the late game too and cleaned up shop on those Bestigors, so definitely a very powerful unit. Still a little bit glass cannony, despite their heavy armor and good stats. They can get dragged down by superior unit models, so you got to be careful, but able to perform well here. And the Reichsguard, of course, doing their part. Boris coming in with a full 60 kills, 23 for the Warrior Priest himself as well. Not too bad, getting mixed up in the melee there. So, yeah, for my opponent, 51 from Morker, not bad. And, of course, the Chaos Spawns also probably got quite a few as well. Some of the Bestigor performing quite well, 76 on these guys. These ones 69, 61 here. But overall, very expensive units, and sometimes don't always pay out, especially when they get Terror routed away, which is one of their biggest weaknesses. A lot of other units, like Black Orcs, for example, in their price range, do have Mutant Psychology, although Chosen don't. Granted, Chosen do have better leadership overall. But Bestigor, that is one of their main weaknesses, is getting Terror routed, as you guys saw there. And the fact that, again, we were able to kind of decisively win the mobility engagement early on, between some different engagements, just really get a hold of those Centaurs, great weapons, and try and do as much damage to them as quickly as possible, really allowed me to kind of dictate the pace of the engagement and just kind of finish these Bestigor off cycle charge style with mobile units. So hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.